Hello again, everyone, and welcome back. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and we are going to be recapping some of the things that have been going on in the world since we last discussed it, and there's a few things to discuss. First things first, military pay raises. That's exciting. Next is the Secretary of Defense for the United States went missing. So, yeah, we're going to unpack that one. And last of all, the situation with the Houthi pirates in the Red Sea. What's going on? How does it affect our lives? And all that jazz. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. Okay, so let's just jump into things. First things first, military pay raises. So typically, and I've been looking at the stats, basically every year military pay raise increases a little bit, trying to match inflation and cost of living. And is sometimes the increases do that, and sometimes the increases don't do it as well. And considering the rate of inflation has been a little bit nuts the last few years, and the cost of living as a result has increased drastically. That has made things in turn rather tight for military families. And for all y'all who are part of the military community like I am, you don't need me to tell you that. You've been living it firsthand. So, good news, this year, the rate increase or pay increase is going to be 5.2%, which is above the 4.6% of last year and previous years. Basically, it's the most we've had in a while. And considering the rate of pay increase has not been outpacing inflation lately, because inflation's been, again, nuts, it's good that we're getting a little bit of a reprieve. Now, this is 5.2% more than 2023. And so just you can kind of gauge in 2019, it was 2.6% increase. In 2020, we got a 3.1%. And 2021, it was a 3%. And 2022, it was 2.7%. So it's all over the board. It's not a consistent thing, but hey, go check it out. Figure out what your pay raise increase is, and hopefully that helps you guys out and your families. I know I'm excited about it, but I mean, who wouldn't be in this economy? So, moving on to our second topic, which is kind of interesting. Well, I found it rather shocking, actually. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. Now, there's a couple things I need to say in you know what I'm meaning, as a preamble to this article. I do not need to know anybody's medical history. I don't need to know your medical business. You don't need to tell me your medical business. However, there are certain jobs where if you're going on with medical stuff and you have medical things, you probably should let people at work know. And so what went down was everyone went on vacation or whatnot for the holidays, for New Year's. And evidently Lloyd Austin had the Secretary of Defense had a procedure, and there was some complication. He was in significant pain. And so on the 1st, he had to go back into the hospital, and he was admitted to the ICU and was in the ICU and is still in the hospital. But no one told the White House, the president, his deputy secretary of defense, who was on vacation in Puerto Rico. So for 3 days, and this started Monday, and it wasn't until 3 days later that people found out where he was. And I get that if you are not feeling well, you might not be thinking clearly. but somebody should have told somebody that he was somewhere. We had 3 days with no Secretary of Defense running things. No one was checking his mail. No one was passing on the briefs to his deputy. The President of the United States wasn't informed. His secretaries, none of them were informed. He's got quite a few secretaries. And his chief of staff was not informed either. So that's a huge red flag. I don't know. But in the military, we got a term for that. It's called AWOL. It's absent without leave. And you know what? If you just disappear from your job, that usually causes problems. That usually sends up some red flags. So, how on earth some aide or someone didn't contact at least the president's chief of staff and say, hey, by the way, or heck, just contact, you're working in the same office. You're in the same building. You don't even have to pick up a phone. You can walk over and tell somebody in the Deputy Secretary of Defense's office, hey, she might need to get into town. There's some stuff going on. Nobody thought to do that for 3 whole days? Wow. I am just shocked. To me, that is just absolutely shocking. And again, the article I'm getting this from is CNN, and they were the ones covering this. And Kathleen Hicks, again, was out of town. She was in Puerto Rico. She was on vacation. And as soon as she found out on the 4th, she was about to hop on a plane and head up, and found by that point he was able to work from the hospital. So she figured she'll just set up a temporary workspace. And so she's working from Puerto Rico and he's working from the hospital. But oh my goodness, really? Really? I'm shocked and frustrated, and I cannot understand how that is acceptable at any level of the military. My husband got massively sick when he, a couple times. He's gotten massively sick a few times. Not often, but massively sick, where he wasn't even able to call in. And so I had to call in and let his chain of command know, this is what's going on. This is what we're dealing with. You know what? Someone around him really should have figured that out. I mean, because I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was in such severe pain that he was not thinking clearly and was not able to communicate proper instructions, but no one had enough initiative to just call someone at the White House or walk over to someone in the deputy's office and let them know for 3 days. Wow. Anyway, I don't know what happened exactly. We're still trying to figure out exactly where the breakdown in chain of command or communication or whatnot happened. But considering everything we're going to be discussing soon with the situations, I mean, we've had military service members under attack. We've had military service members get injured by enemy fire during that period of time. We have conflicts in the world that are being actively monitored and nobody caught on. And the other thing is, why didn't anyone in the White House catch on? Why did no one in the White House clue into this? I mean, why did no one in the deputy's office catch on to this? I know she was on vacation, but presumably someone in her office would have hopefully been in the office, and maybe not on the 1st. I mean, I hope on the 1st there's someone in the office. But I don't know. There's just the absolute level of breakdown that is required for that to happen is absolutely, completely unprofessional, unacceptable with that level of responsibility. And you know what? At this point, I don't care what your medical history is and whatnot, but let's have a plan. So, yeah, that really has got to be looked into and fixed fast. And, stuff like this happens when balls get dropped, communication breaks down. But when it does, it's got to be fixed. So we'll wait and see how that gets fixed. We'll see what the fallout from that one is, or better yet, the after action report for all y'all military and our wonderful military terminology. But going into the next part, the next thing we're talking about this week was the situation with the Houthi pirates in Yemen. And I briefly touched on this back in December before everything, but I wanted to go back to it because, again, I realize that framing things sometimes, with all the research I do for the podcast, with all the things that I'm reading, I forget that not everyone may be as well acquainted with the particulars or the geography, in this case, of situations as I am. So, just because of background, I know a bit about the geography of the region. So let me explain why in geographical situations the problem with the Houthi pirates in Yemen is such a big deal. So prior to the Suez Canal, which I'm hoping y'all know what the Suez Canal, it's the canal that goes through Egypt that connects the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. And the Red Sea then filters into eventually, the Pacific Ocean. Basically, it connects the Mediterranean. For a lack of nuance, Mediterranean and Pacific Ocean connect. Woohoo. It makes things a lot faster. Prior to that, they were having to go all the way down around Africa. I'm sure you heard about it some point in some history class somewhere. Cape of Good Hope, the whole shebang. Anyway, so the Suez Canal is massively important. Well, the shipping that goes from the Suez Canal then goes down into the Red Sea. Once it goes through the Red Sea, you then have then it goes through another bottleneck. So the Red Sea is, for lack of a nuanced way of putting it, to visualize it, think of it as like a really big lake, because it's a sea. It's a massive body of salt water. However, it has a bottom point, this bottleneck, and that's the strait. And I'm just going to be straight up. I'm probably going to mess up saying this strait. I've tried it a couple times, but there's a strait down at the bottom of the Red Sea where it connects, and that is by Yemen. And so Yemen covers the eastern part of that narrow neck of land. And so it goes, and that filters into another small sea. Here's the issue we have. When that is happening, then you have this small body of water for all of these tankers to be navigating, and then they have to get through this really narrow space of water in between pincers of land, and that's where the pirates are hitting. That's what's going on. So I pulled up an AP picture of it, but basically it's the Gulf of Aden is where, so you go from the Red Sea into the Gulf of Aden, and that filters into the Pacific Ocean. And that's where the pirates are centralizing. That's why this is such a big deal. And just like the Panama Canal is a huge deal, because thanks to the Panama Canal, we don't have to go all the way around South America. The Red Sea and the Suez Canal are a big deal because we don't have to go all the way around Africa. It simplifies trade. It makes things go faster from one place to another. And the quicker things get from one place to another, the cheaper they get from one place to another. But with these attacks from the Houthi pirates, we're having issues with loss of cargo, all sorts of stuff. It's delaying shipping. Everything is going on. So Axios put out a report over the holidays, or let me double check. January 4th. So sorry, last week, Axios put out a report, and basically what it analyzed was the cost of shipping through this area. And so the cost of shipping from Asia to the Mediterranean through that area, and then from Asia to North America and the East Coast. So it goes through that area still. All of this is going through that area. And the cost has pretty much doubled since this started. It said in the last 6 weeks, it has gone through the roof, and it is the biggest disruption even since like COVID, or worse than COVID, on the supply chains. And the supply chains have really not fully recovered even from COVID. And so now to be dealing with this is absolutely just catastrophic in a lot of ways. And it means higher prices on everything that has to go through that region. And those higher prices, because of the higher cost, is going to be passed on to all of the consumers worldwide. Now, it's basically saying 30% of the global shipping container volume goes through this area. That's not a small amount of international shipping. That affects everyone. And we've got the United States military in there now trying to help with the situation. The Brits are trying to get involved. This is becoming a significant international issue. And the pirates just, it's not stopping. And they're saying they're not going to stop until basically Israel lets up on Gaza. So let's bring this even a little bit closer to home. When this happens and they have to reroute, it adds an extra 13 to 15 days. So if they reroute because of pirates, then it's going to delay it by 2 weeks. And this includes major shippers, major people like Costco. How many of you shop at Costco? This is going to affect you. This is going to affect major companies inside the United States, and that is going to majorly impact all of the consumers. And this isn't just the United States. This is a worldwide issue. Like I said before, 30% of the global shipping goes through that area. So it's a big deal. Okay, so just to clarify, it's not been the last 6 weeks. It's been since mid-November. I misspoke a few seconds ago. But basically, I've looked over and over again for an exact number of attacks there have been since the beginning, and all I can keep finding is dozens and dozens. So I know there's a lot. I keep hearing about new ones, but I've not been able to find a concrete number. I'm not sure there's been one put out. If there has been, let me know. I'm looking for it. Haven't found it yet. But as of the 5th, it is being the 5th of this month, so just a few days ago, it is being reported that there's been diverting some 200 billion in trade has been diverted because of this. And there are now shipping companies who refuse to ship through the region because they don't say it's safe enough. It's absolutely just, and I'm looking at maps of where I don't have, again, like I said, the exact numbers, but I do have a map that generally indicates where some of these attacks are happening. And there's 1 or 2 or 3 at the top or the northern end of the Red Sea, but the bulk of them are happening down at the bottom. And a few are happening in the Gulf of Aden, but most of them are happening just before that bottleneck, that strait I was telling you about, which means we obviously know where it's happening. We know who is doing it, and the United States is taking action now. There have been helicopter attacks. They are fighting back, but I'm still at a loss for why Yemen is not being pushed harder to do something on their end. And now, a lot of people say that's because the Houthis are part of the Yemeni government. okay, then why isn't the international community putting more pressure on all that situation? I mean, this is affecting everyone. 30% of global trade is being impacted here. It's not just us. So it shouldn't just be the United States and Britain and a handful of others worrying about this or taking care of this. Let's step up. Let's get something done here. And that's where I'm going to have to leave it with this one. But anyway, that is what's going on in regards to the Houthi pirate situation, the Secretary of Defense, and, pay raises. So I'm not sure how you would characterize the beginning of 2024, but hey, buckle up. It looks like it's going to be an interesting one. That's all I've got for right now. As you are probably catching on, I am trying to come up with a little bit more of a rotation consisting of the style or themes of the podcast episodes so that there is a sense of predictability in regards to when different types of episodes are going to drop so that based on your interests, you can catch what you're more interested in. Anyway, that all said, there is lots of things in works with the podcast this year. Please leave a review. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment if there is a topic you would like me to research more about. Please let me know. I have gotten emails, or at least I received emails last year from people about topics, and I am working towards putting together an episode on those. So please, if I have not gotten to producing, I have not yet produced a episode on the topic you suggested. Don't worry, I haven't forgotten. I'm getting there. There's been a lot going on, and like I said, cutest co-host in the world is almost one, and so there's been a lot going on in family life as well. So that all said, lots to look forward to in regards to the podcast this year, and hopefully this year will not be as much of a train wreck. We can hope. So anyway, all that said, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you are listening to Life of a Military Wife.